I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
Another factor which has played big on the market, and that is North Korea. President Trump said yesterday military action is not the first choice in a range of options that the U.S. is considering. Joining us now, John Bolton, former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and a Fox News contributor. Mr. Ambassador, do you think we should strike first?
Well, I think the use of military force is obviously not the first option, and there are diplomatic plays yet to be undertaken. Not with North Korea itself, but with China. But ultimately, I do think we've got to look very carefully at the use of a first strike, because North Korea is determined to keep this capability of deliverable nuclear weapons, and I think it is unimaginable, as Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dunford, said a few weeks ago, unimaginable to leave North Korea with that capability.
So that means diplomacy will not work. In the end, it has to be the military. Basically, that's your position.
No, my position is that if diplomacy doesn't work and there are precious few options left, then I think when you judge your outcome to be the safety of the United States, then I think a preemptive strike is necessary. And I might say this is not a radical doctrine. I had an op-ed in the New York Post yesterday where I quoted Franklin Roosevelt in a fireside chat he gave on September the 11th. 1941, 2 months before Pearl Harbor, 60 years to the day before the 9/11 attacks, when Roosevelt said, "When you see a rattlesnake poised to strike, you do not wait until he has struck before you crush him."
Military action would certainly be an option. Is it inevitable? Nothing's inevitable. It would be great if something else could be worked out. We would have to look at all of the details, all of the facts, but we've had presidents for 25 years now. They've been talking, and the day after an agreement is reached, new work begins in North Korea, continuation on nuclear. So I would prefer not going the route of the military, but it's something certainly that could happen. Our military has never been stronger. We are in a position now, and you know the new orders, you see the numbers just like I see the new numbers. It's been tens of billions of dollars more in investment, and each day new equipment is delivered, new and beautiful equipment, the best in the world, the best anywhere in the world, by far. Hopefully we're not going to have to use it on North Korea. If we do use it on North Korea, it will be a very sad day for North Korea. Do you have a question for the Amir?
Follow-up, is it acceptable for you as president for North Korea to be nuclearized but contained and deterred? Is that a strategy?
We're going to see what it is. I don't negotiate with you.
prefer?
No, I'm not negotiating with you. Maybe we'll have a chance to negotiate with somebody else, but I don't put my negotiations on the table, unlike past administrations. I don't talk about it. But I can tell you that North Korea is behaving badly, and it's got to stop.
We are not looking to the total annihilation of a country, namely North Korea. But as I said, we have many options to do so.
Breaking overnight, North Korea reportedly on the brink of another ballistic missile test. Former senior CIA intelligence officer Tony Shaffer is set to meet with intelligence officials later this month, but he joins us first to discuss this escalating threat. Good morning to you, Colonel Shaffer. And so basically, I want you to break down what happened with regard to the hydrogen bomb and how that compares to what we consider a run-of-the-mill atomic bomb. In other words, why is this so much more severe?
Simply put, it's an order of magnitude more severe regarding the explosive effects. We figured out in the early 50s how to essentially do what we call a hydrogen enhancement to a weapon. We don't know for a fact that the North Koreans have mastered this. I mean, again, it's a two-stage explosion, a fission-fusion explosion. The fission goes off, fusion hits in. It is a order of magnitude. Hiroshima was 15 kilotons. We're talking about upwards of 100 to 1,000 kilotons above that. So this is a very severe, very important step forward if they've mastered it. The components look about right regarding the photographs, but we just don't know at this point.
Right. So what does the U.S. response need to be?
Needs to be a very stern, looking them square in the eye, saying this continued menacing of the Allies in the region and us is not acceptable. I mean, we have to now accept the fact that Hawaii and other elements of the eastern seaboard could be hit by a nuclear weapon, and more importantly, the homeland could be hit easily by what we call an EMP, electromagnetic pulse weapon. Right. North Koreans have acknowledged the fact they're looking at this for the first time. And again, your audience can Google this. Something called Starfish Prime back in 1962 was our first experience with it, where this blast over the Pacific took out the power grid in Hawaii. It would be far worse today because everything we do now is electronically based, and it would be very severe.
I'm going to ask this question. Sure. And I'm sitting in a chair here in New York, so I am not obviously involved. You heard all the pundits say, you know, there's no good solution here. But at the end of the day, we need to come up with a solution. Right. What is that solution going to be?
Well, the solutions that have been tried in the past were feckless. Look, we've been on this path since 1994 and the so-called framework agreement by President Clinton. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is insane, and we have to stop this. So what we have to do now is lay out what we are not willing to accept and then enforce it. John Bolton spoke before about the fact that the Iranians are involved. We need to hold the Iranians accountable. People talk about how the North Korean program has been basically expanded quickly. It's because of the money we gave the Iranians got sent over to the North Koreans. Next, China. We got to hold China completely accountable. Look, this is one of those areas where we actually have more leverage over China to do the right thing than we think. We need to return, this may sound strange, we need to return manufacturing to the United States and tell China, look, either you help us or we don't need you in a lot of areas right now you're making money. So we've got to look at all the things we can do to influence the North Koreans. The Chinese, the Iranians are both things we should do. And then most importantly, to basically make it very clear, the moment anything happens to any interest, you hit something, you hit Guam, you hit Japan, you're going to suffer a big price, and that price is going to be paid by Kim Jong-un. He personally will have to pay that price.
Lieutenant Colonel Shaffer, final question.
Sure.
How does this end?
Well, it ends eventually, someday, I believe, with the ultimate resolution of the two states, North and South Korea coming back together. Look, this is how East and West Germany finally came back together, and I think ultimately they would end it. The question becomes, how do you do that? And that should be our long-term objectives. With that said, in the meantime, we cannot stand for a madman, menacing the people around him and potentially using nuclear weapons to giving them third parties, terrorists, and other folks. It's just not acceptable.
One of the most complicated international situations our country's ever faced.